Welcome back to Get Fit Guy. This is Kevin Don. This week, I'm basically going to take carte blanche to just talk about whatever I want to. It's been a while since I went off on a total tangent, but here we go. Regular listeners will know that I'm studying an MA in philosophy at the University of Edinburgh, but more specifically, most of my elective courses are at the Edinburgh Futures Institute and the Centre for Techno-Moral Futures. So, what does that mean? Well, it's a study of the morality and value of future technology, AI, data, algorithms, robots, post-humans, the impact of globalization on biodiversity, and so on. And the connection here to fitness is the environment. If we have some pet fish in a home aquarium and we don't do what's required to look after the water in the tank, then the fish become unwell or even worse. The water is their environment, and the same goes for us. How many bicep curls do you think that you'd need to do in order to stop the polar ice caps melting, or how many ab crunches to save future generations from forest fires and flash floods due to changes in global climate? So our own fitness, in terms of our ability to interact with the environment, very much depends on there being an environment for us to interact with. This past week, I saw someone I know who doesn't have an insignificant following on social media, posting to his followers about how they can free up more time, live a life of freedom, make life easier by having an LLM. For those not in the know, this stands for Large Language Model, the most well-known of which is ChatGPT, and have it write your email content, your Instagram captions, and basically run your life for you. And this would be a pretty hard position to argue against because it's fairly obvious that if you get another entity, be it a personal assistant, a friend, or an LLM to do your work for you, that you will have more free time. But I'd also wager that most people listening to this podcast will know that something doesn't come from nothing. Before anyone religious emails in to say that God created the universe from nothing, let's say that non-metaphysical beings cannot create something from nothing. So, what is the cost of your something? The something in this case being emails, Instagram captions, and so on being run by an LLM, because there has to be a cost. Now, I'll get into the interaction I had over WhatsApp with this person about his claims in a while, but first of all, let's have a look at the costs of using LLMs. And before I do, I first off want to say I'm literally studying this at one of the world's most advanced research centers on the topic. So, you are definitely encouraged to and allowed to email me in with a counterclaim to my arguments, but remember that a TikTok video or a clip from Joe Rogan is so far down a hierarchy of evidence that it's in the bin. And also please remember, this is just a 12-minute long podcast. It's not a dissertation, so I'm not able to cover every single nuance. So with that being said, let's talk about the environment as a component of fitness and the environmental costs which are incurred from using large language models, because there are some. And first off, it's the huge use of water. So researchers at the University of Texas found in a study, which I can't cite because it's still awaiting peer review, but that merely in the process of training ChatGPT, not its daily use, just the training, the company that developed it, OpenAI, used 185,000 gallons of water, which is about the same as is required to cool a nuclear reactor. And why? Well, when these LLMs think, they basically get hot, really hot. And these servers need cooled down, and that's why water's needed. Apart from the huge volumes of water that they use just to train these models up, it's estimated that the servers need 1 liter of water per 50 to 100 questions. Now, as of last month, ChatGPT is being asked 10 million questions a day and is therefore consuming 100,000 litres of water every 24 hours just to stay cool. And I'd wager that most of the questions being posed to ChatGPT are not really that important. Now, in addition to the water cost, ChatGPT, as of September 2024, is using around 227 gigawatt hours of electricity a year. So if you're anything like me, that kind of data doesn't mean anything. So we have to kind of put it in different terms. So that's about enough electricity to fully charge over 3 million electric vehicles, or to charge 48 million iPhone 15s every single day from zero to full charge for an entire year. So it's a lot of electricity. Also, a single ChatGPT inquiry uses 25 times more energy than a Google search does. And training ChatGPT, aside from the earlier mentioned 185,000 gallons of water, it also produced over 500 tons of carbon dioxide, which is the same as a jumbo jet flying from New York to London 850 times. This is especially problematic when one looks at the locations of where OpenAI have their ChatGPT servers and the localized energy production in that area. We can see that roughly 16% of the energy coming to run these servers is from fossil fuels. Obviously, we know fossil fuels are very bad for the environment. And without going too much into the morals of cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, which of course is not an LLM, but I'm going to include it in here because it's something that people use very often without thinking about the consequences. But Bitcoin gets 63% of its energy from fossil fuels. Anyway, it's fair to say that there is a lot of empirical evidence out there on the negative effects of LLMs on the environment. So, what happened with the chat I had about why I personally wouldn't recommend people to use LLMs to do their work? Well, of course, this person I messaged, first of all, just didn't believe me. And then also gave me the statement that they believed that it doesn't matter because AI itself will come up with a solution to all of this in the future, so therefore we don't need to worry. Which is genuinely one of the craziest and laziest things I've ever heard anyone say. I don't think it's ever okay to say, it's fine for me to poison or actively contribute to negatively impacting the environment because I'm going to kick the can down the road for something or someone else to deal with. But it also got me to thinking about morality and how it can be that people think that distance affects morality, and how philosophy perhaps can help to interpret why, that in spite of sending over data about how bad ChatGPT is for the environment, I was met with that response. And the reality is that we can make a really compelling case for the statement, charity begins at home. Now, in a study in 2002 by Levine et al. And another one by Levine and Thompson, 2004, it showed that people are much more likely to feel moral imperatives towards members of their own groups than members of other groups. The outcome of these and other studies were that distance away from yourself diminishes strength of message and emotional impact of message. It was also shown that distance diminished moral responsibility and how large people anticipated their impact could be on a particular set of consequences. This would align with work which has been done in psychology called social impact theory, which suggests that the impact of an event diminishes with space and time. It's easy, I think, to imagine three scenarios of application of violence. So in the first, we have an infantryman who is engaged in hand-to-hand combat with the enemy and has to take the life of another human with their own hands and witness it occurring, just centimeters in front of them. The second is a sniper who takes the life of an enemy from perhaps a mile away, and it's seen now just through a scope. And the third is a drone operator who is in a command bunker somewhere in the US, firing weapons systems at enemy combatants who are thousands of miles away, and it's only seen through a computer monitor or television screen. Now, all of the above will experience some kind of moral injury, but it could be likely that the distance of space and time results in each person experiencing a different connection to the consequences of their action due to the distance. And this space and time proximity is one way that in law, for example, payouts or responsibility are determined in litigation. So the source of this would be, in the UK, there was a live televised soccer match where many people were crushed to death. It was called the Hillsborough disaster. And people who witnessed this live on television tried to take legal action against the BBC and against the authorities for the trauma they experienced witnessing people being crushed to death. But apart from ties of love and affection that you have to have, there's also temporal proximity. This proximity in time and space is key to making a compelling argument to you experiencing some kind of injury from witnessing the events. And this is not there when you witness something over television. So something to think about. And that's really what philosophy is. It's just thinking about things and trying to come up with reasonable arguments for why you believe the things you believe in. And if you've thought about energy use in your life today and how it might impact biodiversity and changes in the climate, and do you really, really need to ask ChatGPT that question today, then some philosophizing was done. But remember that just because moral sense is diminished by distance from the consequences of one's actions doesn't necessarily mean that there's no connection between those actions and consequences. There are farmers in Botswana having crops wiped out by flash floods caused by climate change, and they have never heard of ChatGPT. If you have any questions, just want to say hi, please email me, getfitguy@quickanddirtytips.com. Get Fit Guy is a Quick and Dirty Tips podcast, thanks to the team at Quick and Dirty Tips, Morgan Christensen, Holly Hutchins, Brandon Getchis, Davina Tomlin, and me. If you have a question, you can voicemail me at 510-353-3104 or email me at getfitguy@quickanddirtytips.com. For more information about the show, visit quickanddirtytips.com or visit the show notes in the podcast app.